Leslie, a couple of technical items before we get to the content of tonight's meeting. On March 17, 2020, the Governor of California issued an executive order suspending certain provisions of the Brown Act in order to allow for local legislative bodies to conduct their meetings telephonically or by other electronic means. Pursuant to the CDC social distancing guidelines, which discourage large public gatherings, the Foundation's board is currently holding meetings virtually. Please know that we want to hear from you. If you are in the audience and you would like to address the board during public comment for items not on the agenda or on any of the agendized items, please use the raise your hand button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. Once you raise your hand, the executive director will see that someone wants to talk, and she will let them know that you are in the waiting. When it is your turn to speak, the executive director will call your name. She will unmute you, and you will be given 3 minutes to address the board. If you are joining us by telephone, you may also address the board during public comment by pressing *9. And again, the executive director will address you and unmute you. You will be given 3 minutes to address the board. Please note, anyone in attendance may only speak once per agendized item. Leslie, have we received any emails from the public?
No, we have not.
Okay, great. So let's begin the meeting. I now call the regular meeting of the San Bruno Community Foundation's Board of Directors of June 1st, 2022 to order. I come to this meeting with mixed feelings. I'm so excited for our annual scholarship presentation, one of the highlights of the year for the foundation, and something I've been looking forward to for months. The 12 students we have to honor today present the promise of the future. At the same time, I'm heartbroken at the carnage that happened in Uvalde, Texas last week. 19 elementary school students and 2 of their dedicated teachers perished as the latest victims of gun violence in our country. We hope that the community members will channel their outrage in a productive manner. Perhaps one of our scholarship recipients will make this cause their own to be the spark for change. This is a time for celebration for our Crestmore scholars, but I could not ignore the events of the past week and welcome you to our meeting today. With that, I'm going to go to item number 2. Secretary Gomez, please call the roll.
Thank you, President Natanya Jones. So Board Member Irving Torres.
Here.
Board Member Superior Perry.
Here.
Board Member Melissa Moreno.
Here.
Secretary Raul Gomez is here. Vice President Jim Ruang.
Here.
And President Melissa Natanya Jones.
Here.
Thank you, all accounted for.
Thank you, Secretary Gomez. Would any members of the public like to address the board on a topic not on the agenda? Please indicate so by using the raise your hand button at the bottom of the Zoom screen.
I do not see any.
Okay. I will then move to item number 4. Presentation of our recognition of the 2022 Crestmore Neighborhood Memorial Scholarship recipients. Would all of the 2022 Crestmore scholars please turn on their video? Yay. Thank you. The recognition of our Crestmore scholars is always one of the highlights of the year. This year, it holds particular meaning against the backdrop of the many challenges that this moment holds for our world. It is particularly poignant to have the opportunity to honor a brilliant and diverse group of scholarship recipients who reflect the best of our multicultural community. We are proud to support such an outstanding group of San Bruno students who have shown their dedication to serving our community and making San Bruno the welcoming and caring place that it is. Before introducing the scholars, I wish to acknowledge the Foundation's Executive Director, Leslie Jaramillo, and Program Manager, Jessica Carrillo, for their leadership of the Foundation's 7th Annual Scholarship Awards process. On behalf of the board, I also want to acknowledge the impressive volunteerism of the committee who deliberated with extensive thought and time with 54 applications to review to arrive at the selection of the scholars we are honoring this evening. We are pleased several dignitaries awards presentation this evening. And I would like to acknowledge San Bruno Mayor Rico Medina, Randall Trujillos of San Mateo County Supervisor Dave Pine's office, City Attorney Mark Zaffarano, Program Sponsor Mary Lou Johnson, Program Sponsor Whitney Welch, Cappuccino High School Principal Jesse Boys, Joyce Lynn, College Career and Financial Aid Advisor at Cappuccino High School. We are also pleased to welcome back some of our previous scholarship recipients. Walter Manufetoa, 2017 Crestmore Scholar. Lauren Velez, 2018 Crestmore Scholar. Pearl Ibianusi, 2020 Crestmore Scholar. Alejandra Aguille, 2021 Crestmore Scholar. Rania Mealy, 2021 Crestmore Scholar. For those of you who are new to the Foundation's proceedings, the San Bruno City Council established the San Bruno Community Foundation and appointed the Board of Directors in 2013 to manage the $70 million in restitution funds from PG&E resulting from the devastating 2010 gas pipeline explosion in the Crestmore neighborhood. One of the board's first major funding decisions was to create the Crestmore Neighborhood Memorial Scholarship Program to honor San Bruno community members who most directly endured the tragedy, especially the 8 San Bruno residents who have lost their lives. The Crestmore Memorial Scholarship Program ensures that the events of September 9, 2010 are not forgotten, and that the resiliency, teamwork, leadership, and commitment to community displayed throughout San Bruno in the aftermath of the explosion and fire are honored in each of the annual recipients of the Foundation Scholarship, who themselves have at a young age volunteered in service to other and a number of whom who have faced significant life challenges themselves. This year, we are thrilled to have the support of the Joseph W. Welch Jr. Foundation and Mary Lou and Alan Johnson, both of whom made generous donations to the Crestmore Scholarship Program this year. Thank you for the support. To the scholars, on behalf of the Board of Directors of the San Bruno Community Foundation, I wish to express not only admiration for your success traversing the challenges of high school and community college, but for your maturity in recognizing the importance of being positive contributors to society. It is our hope that you'll never lose sight of how critical it is to the future of your college and the community where you ultimately reside, that you'll be engaged in making positive contributions to the welfare of the others, just as you've been engaged and involved in our San Bruno community. In addition to all that has already been recognized, I'd also like to acknowledge the fortitude and resilience of this group. Each of you have achieved all that you have is remarkable. Amidst a global pandemic and at a particularly tumultuous time in our history as a nation, your accomplishments are literally unprecedented. Each one of you shines as a brilliant beacon of hope in a trying time. And we intend to follow your lead as you continue your paths. We look forward to you keeping the board updated on your accomplishments. We are honored and pleased to help support your academic and personal growth. This is a proud moment for you, your families, the foundation, the city of San Bruno, and your schools. Normally, we would ask the scholars to rise and they could be recognized at the podium, but the Zoom format doesn't allow us to do that. But we will display a photo of each scholar and all scholars are visible on the Zoom screen. I want to mention that each scholar will receive a scholarship certificate from the foundation as well as a commendation from the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors, courtesy of Supervisor Dave Pine. Randy, thank you for you and Supervisor Pine for making accommodations happen. We cannot provide these to you in person tonight, but we will be mailing them to you soon after this meeting. Vice President Ruane is going to help out with the presentation this evening and introduce each of our scholars. Drum roll, please.
Great. Thank you very much, Chair Natalia Jones. And this is a real treat for me, by the way. I just hope I don't mess up your names. So let's give it a go. Our first 8 scholars are recent high school graduates, all from Cappuccino High School. The first 2 scholars will attend a community college and receive $5,000 scholarships, $2,500 a year for 2 years. Our first is Wayne Louie, a Cappuccino High School student enrolled in the middle college program at Skyline College. Wayne plans to pursue a business degree when he returns to Skyline College this fall. Wayne has used his technical skills to volunteer in a variety of capacities at his church, where he supports the worship team as a stage manager, lighting coordinator, and video camera operator. At Skyline, Wayne has been a student assisting supporting the middle college program staff and a dedicated volunteer at Skyline's weekly drive-through grocery distribution since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our next recipient is Samantha Pashner. In addition to participating in the Chamber Singers Group, Samantha has been the administrative backbone of the Cappuccino High School music program, providing invaluable service to the music director by handling day-to-day logistics for the symphonic and marching bands, organizing fundraisers, and coordinating community concerts. Samantha has learned the value of empathy and compassion while serving as her mother's caregiver in the final years of her life. Samantha plans to study business at the College of San Mateo. The next 6 high school scholars will attend 4-year colleges or universities. Each will receive a $20,000 scholarship, $5,000 a year for 4 years. Our first is Rowan Alayan. As a San Mateo County Youth Climate Ambassador, Rowan created a clothing swap at Cappuccino High School aimed at reducing the carbon footprint of the San Bruno community. As a second-degree black belt, Rowan coaches children as a Taekwondo instructor. She has also been a board member of Cappuccino's Interact Club and the San Mateo Activist Coalition, and she served as a cabin leader for the San Mateo County Outdoor Education Program. Rowan will study kinesiology at San Francisco State University. Next is Sabina Berwawi. Sabina is an activist, athlete, and artist committed to social justice. A leader of the Sexuality and Gender Alliance Club at Cappuccino High School, Sabina has hosted the club's drag shows and led school-wide efforts in the LGBTQ education. She has served as president of the San Mateo Activism Coalition, interned with California Youth Connection, and competed with the Cappuccino swim team. She also worked on a Black Lives Matter mural, helped create the set for school plays, and has had her artwork showcased at the Society of Western Artists Gallery. Sabina will attend UC Santa Cruz this fall. Next, we have Mila Brignardello. With aspirations of becoming a pediatrician, Mila will study biology at UC Berkeley. As a Girl Scout and a member of Cappuccino's Environmental Club, Marine Biology Club, and Interact Club, Mila is committed to giving back to the community. She helps students prepare for college through the mentorship program that leads beach cleanups through the Pacific Beach Coalition. A 4-year athlete on the cross-country and track teams, Mila won the Central Coast Section Division III cross-country championships in 2021 and became only the second female in Cappuccino history to qualify for the state meet. Next is Adrienne Chen. While successfully managing a full IB course load at Cappuccino High School, Adrienne volunteers to help kids in need reach their full potential. She's a math tutor for STEM Power, the social media manager for Supply Hope Info, which donates school supplies to disadvantaged students, and director of marketing for Superpositions San Mateo, which promotes STEM opportunities for female and non-binary students. She also plays the violin with Cappuccino's Chamber Orchestra and is a member of the Interact Club. Adrienne will attend UCLA. Next is Raymond Gonzalez. Motivated by his experience caring for his ailing grandfather, Raymond plans to study biology at Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C., and pursue a career in a medical field. A black belt, Raymond enjoys teaching Taekwondo to children, volunteering at St. Bruno's Catholic Church, serving on the school site council as a student representative, and participating in beach cleanup activities. Thankful for the assistance he has received to overcome many challenges, Raymond is proud to be a first-generation college student. Isabel Guzman Quiano, an accomplished artist, Isabella has been instrumental in designing and painting a community mural in downtown San Mateo, spearheaded by the San Bruno Lions Club and the Cappuccino High School IB art program. A natural leader, Isabella has supported Cappuccino's sports teams and promoted school spirit as a 4-year cheerleader. While the pandemic has been challenging for Isabella's family, she has been committed to giving back to the community. Isabella will attend UCLA. Raif Makrai. Coming from a minority background, Raif is committed to giving back to his local community by sharing knowledge and resources with other minority students. A Cappuccino senior enrolled in middle college program at Skyline College, Raif tutors other students, volunteers at Skyline's drive-through grocery distribution, and works on community service projects with the Interact Club. As a part of the Black Lives Matter movement, Raif began volunteering for Black Man Music Group, working with young singers and rappers to promote music career programs. Raif plans to major in economics at UC Berkeley. Nason Rafi, a native of San Bruno, Mason is committed to giving back to the community in which he has grown up. A leader in the Cappuccino High School Interact Club, Mason has volunteered at a wide range of community events, including Taste of San Bruno, Goblin Grotto, Concerts in the Park, San Bruno Special Olympics, and COVID-19 vaccination drives. Mason has been an advocate for the LGBTQ plus community as the president of Cappuccino Sexuality and Gender Alliance Club. Mason will begin his studies at UC Santa Cruz in the fall. Our final group of scholars, 2 graduates of Skyline College, are receiving $10,000 scholarships, $5,000 a year for 2 years, to advance from community college to a 4-year college. Isabel Martin, a 2020 graduate of Cappuccino High School, Isabel will transfer from Skyline College to UC Berkeley to obtain a bachelor's degree in sociology this fall. In high school, Isabel served as junior class president, played on the soccer and tennis teams, and organized a school supply and children's book drive. While at Skyline, Isabel has distributed food to families in need through Second Harvest of Silicon Valley, organized food donations from her cafe job to the Catholic Worker Hospitality House, and pursued culturally competent research focused on women, the Latinx community, and other minority groups. And our final recipient is Patricia May Sumang. In both her studies and her community service work, Patricia has focused on mental health and community healing, especially in underdeserved populations. While at Skyline College, Patricia has been a leader of the Filipinx Student Union and the Kababayan Learning Community. She has also served as the Skyline Outreach Student Ambassador, assisting prospective students in the application process and transition to college. Transferring to UC Irvine this fall, Patricia will major in psychology and ultimately intends to pursue a doctorate degree. Members of the board and the public, I am delighted to present the 2022 class of Crestmore Memorial Scholars.
Awesome. Congratulations. And
Can I interject, Madam President? I'm just going to go back to Sabina's slide because I was having PowerPoint issues at that point. So hold on just a moment. So I can go back to her slide. Just for a second, so we can all celebrate Sabina as well. Okay.
thank you, Leslie. We'd like now to ask 2 of the 2022 scholars to say a few words. Raif will speak on behalf of the high school scholars, followed by Patricia, who will speak on behalf of the Skyline students advancing to a 4-year college. Raif?
Good evening, everyone. Allow me to say what an honor it is to be here today as one of the 2022 Crestmore Neighborhood Memorial Scholarship recipient. Each of us here tonight has worked hard to get where we are today. We have dedicated ourselves to our studies and have maintained an excellent academic standing throughout our high school years. And more importantly, we have spent time giving back to our communities, helping better the San Bruno community through our co-curricular activities and community involvement. I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to those at the San Bruno Community Foundation, especially those on the scholarship committee. The gift you have given all of us will put our goal of a quality education within reach. Your gift has not only relieved some of the financial pressure of going to college, but has also provided us with something equally, if not more important, a recognition of a job well done. Getting this scholarship means getting the gift of time, time to focus on our studies, time to volunteer in our communities, and time to pursue professional opportunities because of the financial relief you provide us. As I begin my college journey at UC Berkeley as an economics major, I'm very thankful to have been selected as a recipient of your gift. Thank you.
Patricia?
And first off, just wanted to say thank you to the San Bruno Community Foundation for this scholarship and for giving me the space to thank you all face to face. I also want to recognize those lives who were lost in the Crestmore fire and grateful for the board for creating the scholarship in honor of their memory. As many of us know, college is no easy task. Oftentimes, students, myself included, spend a lot of time worrying about how they're going to pay for college. That can look like spending hours trying to earn enough income and now worrying about student debt. So being relieved of some of the financial burdens is such a huge weight lifted off of our shoulders. This is going to give us time, focus less time on trying to figure out how to pay for tuition and devote our energies into focusing on school and focusing on our goals and achieving our dreams. So thank you to all of you for helping us get one step closer to achieving our dreams.
Thank you, Raif and Patricia. It is my pleasure now to welcome back Lauren Velez, a 2018 Crestmore Scholar, who is graduating this spring from UCLA with a major in political science. At UCLA, one of Lauren's most notable activities was serving as a student advocate for the University of California Student Association. As the UCSA's fund, the UC campaign chair, Lauren launched the national student-led campaign to double the federal Pell Grant in an effort to make college more accessible and affordable for all. After graduation, Lauren will join the Bridgespan Group in San Francisco as an associate consultant, an offshoot of Bain and Company. Bridgespan provides to nonprofit strategy consulting and leadership development that opportunities and challenges related to scaling social impact. Lauren will offer a few words of wisdom to our new scholars. Lauren?
Hello, everyone, and thank you to the San Bruno Community Foundation for having me here today. Congratulations to this year's Crestmore Scholars. The Crestmore Scholarship has served as an invaluable resource to me throughout college, and I'm forever grateful for the financial support it's given me as I pursue my degree. What's most special about this scholarship is that it symbolizes the support of the San Bruno community in my goals, and it means the world to me to know that my community cares about my success. To receive this award is a true achievement, and I hope you feel proud of yourselves and your contributions to our community today. My name is Lauren Vallis, and I graduated from Cappuccino High School in 2018. I'm now a senior at UCLA, majoring in political science, and I'll be graduating next week. In the fall, I'm very excited to be moving back to the Bay Area to work as an associate consultant at Bridgespan. And that's for anyone, if you ever want to talk about consulting, a very common post-grad path, please let me know. When I was asked to deliver remarks for this year's scholars on what I wish I would have known at the beginning of college, I struggled to find a salient tip or trick that I would have found helpful 4 years ago when I started at UCLA. But through talking to my friends and family, I've realized that the most important motto I've learned over the past 4 years is to invest more in less. That was written by my friend in a blog post for UCLA admissions. And as I reflect on my undergraduate experience, I can't think of a phrase more grounding or important. What I've learned in college is that it's impossible to dedicate 110% to everything. And what I learned during the pandemic is that relationships, the ones you maintain with your family, your friends, and even your professors and peers are what matter the most. So as you enter college, I encourage you to think about the time you give to everything you do. Try to focus in on things that truly matter to you once you figure that out, and give those things your full attention and spirit. By prioritizing the things that really matter to you, you prevent yourself from burning out and allow yourself to live in the moment, present and fully. Best of luck to all of you as you enter the incredible journey that is going to college, and please don't hesitate to reach out to me if I can ever serve as a resource. Congratulations again, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lauren, for those words. I'd like to now turn the time over to Mayor Rico Medina, who would like to say a few words to the new Crestmore Scholars.
Good evening, everyone. And may I say congratulations. I'll try to keep it short. Jim Ruane always wants me to do that, but at these times, it's challenging and hard because we can think back. Jim and I actually, former Mayor Ruane and I were there at the time of the disaster. And Jim has said something good has got to come out of this. Well, something has, something is. And through you, it will continue. There was a Walter that, was a recipient here, and I saw him in a South San Francisco opening. And I saw him at the Economic Advancement Center, which helps businesses, helps folks throughout the northern part of the San Mateo County. And he wanted to say hello to me because he lived in San Bruno. He received one of these scholarships. He became the first member of his family to graduate from college. And through these means, it helped fulfill, and now he's giving back. It is so important, and I was at Cappuccino's graduation, and so I got to see most of you, as I handed you a rose from a former Cappuccino grad to a new Cappuccino grad. And I can tell you, what touched me most was the diversity, the inclusion, the hope, and the pride, not only for being a Mustang for me, but just what the future will hold. So when times are difficult, when things don't go right, and I mess up, when you'll mess up, when we hit a bump in the road, we have to continue to believe in each other. We have to never lose hope. And we have to know that what is before you won't be easy, but what you have gone through with the COVID times and everything else have already been challenging in itself. I personally believe in each and every one of you. These are one of the proudest times to be here, to see you, to address you. Unfortunately, not in person, but I will tell you, it is as meaningful to me. I'm very proud of each and every one of you. I believe in each and every one of you. And this community will stand by you as you enter your college years and as you become the leaders of whatever profession you choose in your life. And I know we are in good hands. My friends, congratulations to your graduations, and congratulations to your recipients, and my best wishes to you in your future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Medina. Supervisor Dave Pine wanted to be with us tonight, but had a conflict. Randall Torrijos would like to greet the Crestmore Scholars on his behalf.
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you to the Board of Directors for letting me say a few brief words, especially hello to Irving Torres. It's always nice to see a former county legislative aide. Good to see you. And, this group every year is always so impressive, and certainly that's true this year. Whenever this event comes up, it's very clearly a source of pride and optimism for our county. And so you all carry the goodwill of the entire county with you in your future endeavors, which I know will be incredible. And one of the great things about having been able to attend these over the years is seeing former awardees come back, like Lauren. I was there in 2018 when she got her award, and I am looking forward to seeing what you guys do in your future and seeing some of you come back to the community and speak. As Melissa said, I am working on some commendations. I will get those out to you soon. And that'll be signed by Supervisor Pine and all the members of the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors, who again wish you congratulations, good luck, And we will all be rooting for you in your future endeavors. So thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Longtime San Bruno resident and business person, Mary Lou Johnson and her husband, Alan, are donors to the Crestmore Scholarship Program this year. We are thrilled Mary Lou is able to join us tonight, all the way from Australia. So thank you so much, Mary Lou. The time is yours.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Well, first of all, what an honor it is to acknowledge the accomplishments of the students. I have read each one of the bios and was quite impressed what they have already accomplished, their perseverance, their heart, their willingness to think outside the box. I was so impressed by that level of commitment and the difference that they're making, and not only in our community, but in the world. And they provide hope in a world of challenges, and they're gifted. These students, you're gifted. You have a purpose. You've been chosen for a reason. And to persevere your dreams. Don't let anything hold you back. Your brilliance and your heart matter, not only to your parents, but to us, to many of us in our community. And you have already made a difference. Stay strong during difficult times, through peaks and valleys. There are only peaks and valleys, and we come through the other side typically always better. So congratulations. I'm extremely honored to be here to acknowledge you. And being in the field of education for 45 years, I know that I'll cross paths and be able to hear about what you are accomplishing along the way, and I look forward to that. My very best to you and to your family. And an honorable moment for me to be able to be part of you all the way from Australia.
Thank you so much, Mary Lou, for taking time out to join with us tonight and to acknowledge and honor our scholars. Thank you so much. Is Ms. Welch in the meeting this evening? Okay. I want to also just acknowledge Whitney Welch, who represents the Welch family and the Joseph W. Welch Jr. Foundation, which has donated $70,000 to the Crestmore Scholars each of the past 3 years. We're so thankful for the Welch's family generosity, and we're pleased that they're able to continue to support this work. At this time, that is the completion of our program for this evening. But before we finish this portion, would any board members wish to comment? Irving, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I just had the opportunity to be on this, part of the selection committee. It was my first time, and just reading these applications, it was just so inspiring, just to everything that a lot of the recipients had gone through, their accomplishments and so forth. So I just want to commend the recipients tonight. You all have a story to share. I'm just excited for your future. And I think at the end of the day, everything that the speakers have said, I second everything that they said. And my best wishes and luck to you all. And I just want to leave with just a quote that always inspires me every day that I want to share with you all as you move on to your next chapter. It's an African proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. So thank you very much. And congratulations to the recipients.
Thank you, Board Member Torres. Board Member Melissa Moreno.
I just want to congratulate our scholars and just wish you the best. And I'm so happy to see several Skyline representatives here. And so I'm just excited to be here and see you get honored in this way. You deserve it.
Thank you. Secretary Gomez.
Thank you. I would just like to say congratulations and just to really say how resilient all of you guys are. You guys really had a tough time with high school. High school is tough enough, let alone a pandemic and everything else that you guys experienced over the last 4 years. So I would just like to say congratulations. to the Crestmore Scholars. I know that you guys are going to do absolutely fantastic in the world, and I just can't wait to see and hear back all the great stories and achievements that you guys have been able to accomplish. So don't forget about us here in San Bruno, and congratulations again.
Thank you, Secretary Gomez. Jessica.
Hi, everyone. So as the congratulations, I am so excited for you all, and I'm excited to follow you over the next 2 to 4 years in the process of college. I want you to keep in touch with us. And also, you know, at the end of the year for your annual checks as well, I know you will be in touch. But we're so confident in you and happy for you all. And my heart is so happy for you as well, reading all of your stories and everything that you've done to contribute to San Bruno and just in your life. And so I feel like I followed you all from the beginning, and see us as your support system that ultimately believes in you. And we have confidence in you and know that you'll have a bright future ahead. So congratulations.
Thank you, Jessica. Any other board members? I'll just take a quick moment. Number one, go Mustangs, class of 94. Ooh, I just dated myself. Anyway, congratulations to all of you scholars, especially those that are going to college and those who are going to four-year college. You know, just to underscore what Secretary Gomez said, it hasn't been an easy couple of years, especially for our young people to go to school, distant learning, transitioning back, and still being successful and powerful. I hope that you all enjoy your college life and your academic successes, that you can come back and help build community power here in San Bruno. So I just want to wish you all the best of luck and be safe. Any words from members of the public?
Please use the raise hand function if you'd like to speak for the attendees. I do not see any.
Okay. Thank you, Leslie. At this time, we will take a brief pause before continuing on with the meeting so that those of you who need to leave may do so. And so again, congratulations to all our Crestmore scholars. Thank you to our dignitaries who are here, as well as Mary Lou Johnson, all the way from Australia. So thank you all. You all can log off, it's okay. We won't be offended. Okay. So while those who are leaving exit the Zoom, I'm going to go ahead and move on to item number 5. And that is, I'm going to turn the time over for the approval of minutes by Secretary Gomez.
Thank you. So meeting minutes from our May 4th meeting are in your packet, and the chair would like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. If there are no more questions or comments, Raul, please call for a vote.
Great. Board Member Irving Torres.
Aye.
Board Member Sapira Piri.
Aye.
Thank you. Board Member
Great.
Melissa Moreno.
Aye.
Secretary Raul Gomez is an aye. Vice President Jim Ruane.
Aye.
And President Melissa Natani Jones.
Aye.
Thank you very much. All accounted for.
Thank you, Secretary Gomez. Item number 6, the Executive Director's Report. I'll turn it over to Leslie.
Good evening, everyone. It has been a busy couple of months since I last gave an executive director's report with the selection of the 2022 Crestmore Scholars, preparation for tonight's presentation, preparations for the launch of the Community Grants Fund, which will happen in July, and also preparations for our fiscal year 22-23 budget. The meeting packet contains my executive director's report with information on our insurance renewals, next engagement with our auditor, and our website, e-newsletter, and social media traffic. We have a packed meeting tonight, so in the interest of time, I won't repeat what's all in the written report, but would be happy to take any questions you might have. Otherwise, that's it for me tonight.
Any questions or comments from the board? No? Okay. Any questions from the public? You can use the raise your hand icon at the bottom. Okay, I don't see any hands. We'll go ahead and move on to number 7, consent calendar. We have 2 items on the consent calendar today as listed in the agenda. Unless there are questions, I call for a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. Secretary Gomez, call for vote, please.
Board Member Irving Torres,
Aye.
Board Member Sapira Perry,
Aye.
Board Member Melissa Moreno,
Aye.
Secretary Raul Gomez is an aye, Vice President Jim Rowan,
Aye.
and President Melissa Natani Jones,
Aye.
all accounted for.
Thank you, Secretary Gomez. Item number 8, conduct of business. We are going to first receive a report from the City of San Bruno on Community Day 2022, and I'll turn it over to Leslie.
Going to let our guests from the city join in just a second. As you know, in April, the Foundation Board approved a $30,000 strategic grant to the City of San Bruno to support Community Day 2022, something we have done for a number of years pre-pandemic. We've typically been the lead sponsor for the event. Community Day this year is scheduled for this coming Sunday, June 5th, and I hope everyone on the board and attending the meeting will be able to attend the festivities. Tonight, we have with us Recreation Services Coordinators Kelsey Klima and Jackie Carlisle of the Community Services Department, and they will provide us with an update on the city's plans for the event. Welcome, Kelsey and Jackie. If you can turn on your video. You should also be able to share your slides.
Good evening. So it looks like our camera is not detected, but we do have our slides ready.
Okay.
I'm really apologize for that. Hold on just 1 second.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for allowing us to present our new and approved 2022 Community Day celebration. On Sunday, June 5th, Community Day will return to provide a place for the community to come together, reconnect, and build bonds and relationships after a 2-year pause of this event due to the pandemic. We've made several changes and additions this year that we believe the community is going to love. Throughout our presentation, we will be discussing each new and exciting event zone that the community will be able to experience this Sunday. Global cuisine. Transport your senses and discover global delicacies located on San Mateo Avenue. Each mouth-watering addition to our guide will be open and ready to invite you in on June 5th. Make sure to read each restaurant description to plan which new food style you'd like to try. Entertainment schedule. Discover entertainment as diverse as San Bruno. Keep an eye and ear out at the main stage for Polynesian dance and music, ballet for folklorico, taiko drummers, and more. Head out to our acoustic stage to slow down and relax with family and friends. Touch a truck. Get up close and explore police, fire, and public works vehicles and meet the people who operate them every day. Touch a Truck will be located between Keynes and Angus Avenue. This and That. Head over to the 600 block of San Mateo Avenue for our This and That section. Take in the soothing sounds of our acoustic stage while enjoying some friendly competition in our giant Connect Four, cornhole, ping pong tables, giant tic-tac-toe, and checkers. Art block. Ready to show off your art skills? Join local San Bruno artists to create a chalk art street mural. Our Community Day mural will begin in front of Starbucks and continue north towards Pinot's Palette. Over 30 local artists will present to showcase and sell their art, so make sure you stop by. From handmade jewelry to pottery, paintings, and more, you never know what you may find. And don't forget to start off your Community Day experience at Angus and San Bruno Avenue to get your face painted by local Bay Area artists. Kids Zone. Run, jump, climb, and putt in our zone made just for kids. Check out our 4 inflatable obstacles, climbing wall, mini golf course, and more. Wristbands are available for $5 and can be purchased at our ticket booth located in front of Citibank. Heart of San Bruno. Make sure to come by the Heart of San Bruno. Connect with local nonprofits, community groups, and city departments to learn how they serve the community and how you can get involved. You can look forward to checking out booths from San Bruno Library, San Bruno Education Foundation, Parks and Recreation Commission, our 2022 summer camp instructors, and more. Event map. Our event map will be available at all info booths and map kiosks. Please keep a lookout for our "You Are Here" signs to help you navigate to each exciting area. Social media campaign. If you follow us on our social media pages, then you have been a part of our Community Day countdown. For 18 days, we are highlighting each exciting attraction on our Facebook and Instagram pages. Email blasts through our Civic Rec system and our community services newsletter have gone out each week as well. Community Day 2022 website. Can't wait until Sunday? Visit our website at sanbruno.ca.gov/community day to view event maps, check out promotional videos from our entertainment, and plan your food tour around San Mateo Avenue.
Thank you so much. That concludes our presentation.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Yes, Board Member Moreno.
Yeah, I just have a comment. I really appreciate the effort to bring different cultures together and global food. And I know that this board in particular is focused on equity, and that effort, I think you hit a home run. And I'm really proud of the event. And so thank you so much for all of the work that you did.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Secretary Gomez.
I just want to say to the planning committee, thank you so much for thinking outside of the box and really bringing back Community Day. Posey Parade has been, as we know, in the Guinness Book of World Records as the longest standing non-motorized parade. And I'm glad that that's still going, but just have a technical question. I'm really actually interested in checking out the St. Robert's, excuse me, baseball game. When or how would that work out with the San Mateo Avenue events along with the baseball game that's going to be played at San Bruno Park? Is it just going to be a 50-50 split, or do people just kind of navigate to wherever they are interested in?
Yeah, they'll the community will just have to decide at what time to kind of visit both events. Unfortunately, we can't have it in the park this year until our new rec center is built, and we'll maybe move back, but I think that people, they'll have what they want to attend, and hopefully they'll be able to make it to both events. We are 12 to 5, so that I think people have the opportunity to attend both.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, well, again, reiterate this coming Sunday, 12 to 5, join the San Bruno Community Day 2022. And based on the presentation, it looks like it's going to be a great event. Any questions from the public? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to ask the public.
Okay. Are there any questions from the public? No? Okay. Thank you, Kelsey and Jackie.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to move on. Item B, to receive a report from the Ad Hoc Committee on Education Initiatives. I will turn over the time to Secretary Gomez to give the report.
Thank you, President Tanya Jones. So I'll be making the report on the Ad Hoc Committee on Education Initiatives on behalf of my colleagues on the committee, Pac, Lynn, and Supriya Puri. So in March, the committee asked the presidents of the parent teacher associations at all San Bruno Park School District schools to complete a school needs survey. The survey asked about current funding priorities for the following focus areas: outdoor education, teacher reimbursement, field trips and transportation, and then any other funding needs. Representatives of all schools, PTAs, and O's submitted survey responses, which the committee has compiled and reviewed. Although the survey did reveal different needs at each school, it also made it clear that all schools would benefit from additional financial support, especially after the past 2 years of substantial impact from the pandemic. In particular, most of the schools identified a need for more funding related to field trips, including the 5th grade outdoor education program. Because the school district does not have its own fleet of buses, schools must rent buses, which can cost upwards to $800 per field trip. Most of the schools depend exclusively on the PTA PTOs to cover the cost of the field trips, including transportation, which limits the numbers of field trips each class can take or offer. Moreover, over the past 2 years, the pandemic has limited the ability of schools to offer field trips. No field trips were available in 2020-21 school years. When the school spent most of the year in distance learning format, and most trip venues were not open, unfortunately. The 21-21 school year has provided some opportunities for field trips, including the outdoor education program. But as venues have continued to have some COVID restrictions and the schools have faced ongoing challenges related to the pandemic, field trips have not been as plentiful as they were pre-pandemic. So the committee sees this as a tremendous value in field trips for elementary and middle school students. The opportunity to leave the school campus and be exposed to new experience at museums, parks, concerts, and other community venues, especially after more than 2 years of the pandemic. When the youth have faced mental health challenges with social distances and isolation, and have fewer opportunities to attend community events and visit other places like museums and zoos. So would like to get the board's thoughts on this on this excuse me, grant. Excuse me. So I'd like to seek input on the board's thoughts on this grant.
Floor is open. Any thoughts regarding the grant? Raul, could you just quickly give us a quick overview one more time, please? That would help me.
Sure thing. So in March, we actually had a survey created and we sent it to the PTA, PTO leaders, and they actually did all complete it. I did attend one of the PTA, PTO meetings, and it was very well received. As you guys know, through COVID, kids were not able to actually attend any field trips, or even they were doing social distance learning, so they were unable to attend any of the enriched that the field trips would actually bring to the kids or the school sites. So to that end, as we actually did create a survey, when we did compile the results and looked, what we saw that came out very loud was that field trips and outdoor ed was something that they definitely do need to support. They actually have the PTA, PTOs fully support these programs throughout the school. So to kickstart the COVID experience that these schools had just experienced over the last 2 years, what we're hoping to do with this $35,000 grant, and it would actually go $5,000 for each school site, $10,000 for Parkside. And and what it would do would actually be for the next upcoming school year, which would be 22-23. And respectively, they would receive, again, $5,000, $10,000 for Parkside. And they would be able to use that for outdoor ed, any field trips. And should actually COVID continue to rise, as we're starting to see a little bit of a spike in numbers, but if in the upcoming school year, if they are not able to actually attend a field trip or have a field trip actually, we're allowing them to even have an assembly within the actual school so that they can still continue to be enriched, to be learning and growing as they're continuing their education here within San Bruno. So really, this is a COVID relief fund, if you will, just to kind of kickstart the schools and getting them back to a newer normal, if you will.
Thank you,
Through the chair.
Yes, Jim.
Yeah, I think it's a great initiative. Leslie and I met before all of COVID hit with Cappuccino High School, just mentioning another entity. And we talked about some vocational things for kids to do that perhaps didn't want to go to college or want to get into trades and things like that. And the biggest obstacle was, how do we get the kids to these shows? How do we get the kids to these different types of apprenticeship displays and things like that? And a lot of it had to do with the transportation needs. So you're addressing it at a younger age, which I think is great. So the initiative is very well founded, and if they can use it all, that's great. If they can't, it's always there. So I think it's great.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Board Member Moreno?
Yeah, so I just want to make sure I understand that you'll come back to us with a formal consideration and approval with more specific details, because I'm just kind of curious, how many students would we serve and what kinds of outdoor activities or field trips would we do more specifically? Is that where we're at right now?
Well, where we're at is it would be a flat fee for each school. So $5,000 for each school site, $10,000 for Parkside. Now it would be for just the upcoming school year. And like I said, it's really COVID relief just to kickstart their school. Because again, the PTAs are unable to fundraise as they have before pre-COVID. So this is really just to allow them to continue as they have pre-COVID. And allow more or less, again, outdoor ed or any other field trips that they would again, you know, and again, we're allowing the PTA, PTO leaders to really understand that under the guise of again, field trips, outdoor ed, or any kind of assemblies, that the monies would be appropriate for that use, but that use only.
So we are approving tonight $5,000 for each? Oh, no.
No. The committee will take the feedback from the board from this meeting and then come back with a formal proposal in July.
Got it. Okay.
So usually that's our process. Usually an idea will come from a committee. The committee will present it to the board so that they can get feedback from the full board, take it back, process that, refine the proposal, and then bring it back for full consideration.
Perfect. So my feedback is continue to go down this path. I think it's a great idea to support this initiative.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you. Board Member Torres?
Thank you, President. I guess I just want some clarification that if they weren't able to use the funds for outdoor ed due to COVID, you mentioned about the assembly as like an alternative. Any ideas on like what that would consist of and how that would be connected to the outdoor like education if they were to go out on like field trips? I think there needs to trying to get some clarification of like how that would work out and so forth. But otherwise, yeah, I think it's a great program to move forward. And then I think I'm just curious about, I know this is a PTA, but how are they, creating any type of outcomes or measurements, like, when the kids participate in this, are they collaborating with like another organization with the outdoor eds to collect some like information on outcomes and results from these activities?
Actually, it's more of, again, just for them to actually, like I said, attend, outdoor ed field trips and or assemblies. Now, as I said, if COVID, takes a bad turn, and again, let's pray it doesn't. The assemblies really was something that the PTOs brought when I actually attended their meeting that is hosted by the San Bruno Education Foundation. They actually have a monthly meeting, and I was invited to their meeting twice, once to introduce the survey and then once to another time to go over the results. And when we did go over the results and let them know that outdoor ed and transportation were the two top things that came out of the survey, they then mentioned, well, what if, COVID does take a turn and we're unable to do field trips and we have this grant money, if you will, can we use it for assembly? So we thought that, that's kind of under the same remit, if you will, of again, providing some kind of support or education for the children within the San Bruno school sites in lieu of, again, an outdoor experience.
I think also to respond to your question, we're not trying to tell them what to spend it on within the purview of field trips and outdoor ed and assemblies, right? It's up to the schools to decide what they, and the teachers usually are the ones who select field trips of what they want to expose their students to. I think where this is coming from is that after 2 years of COVID, the kids haven't had these extra trips where you get off campus and you get to experience a museum or the zoo or a symphony or, all kinds of, they even take kids to like the recology plant, right, to learn about recycling. Just those off-campus opportunities that are really enriching for students to occasionally get off campus. Right now, because the school district has no buses, and because now to rent a bus is literally like close to $1,000, it's just, it really limits the opportunities because PTAs have to raise those monies, and fundraising has been down because of COVID. So we're just trying to give them a little bit to make it easier to jumpstart field trips going forward. The idea of also allowing for assemblies is just that in the event that COVID may prohibit as many field trips as happening, bringing enrichment opportunities to campus, like a music group or a performing arts group comes to campus, or the Marine Science Institute can bring the marine life, actually they can bring some to campus. They would have those opportunities as opposed to moving the kids off campus if that becomes not an option. But it's really up to the school sites themselves to make the decisions of the programming.
Thank you, Leslie, for the clarification. Board Member Perry?
Hi, can you all hear me? My video froze, but yes. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to sort of mention that in the committee spent a great deal of time, and I'm going to say specifically Raul, in attending the PTA meetings and PAC and putting together all of the data that we got, considering how we could really do something that that could be a little, post-COVID surge that would be broadly equitable and allow for flexibility, given that each school and each PTA is not necessarily similarly situated. So just to sort of maybe set expectations in terms of how granular this might be, it's purposely perhaps not, because we're trying to touch upon the broadest or have a positive impact on the broadest number of students.
Thank you.
Thanks, Supriya.
Any other?
The one other thing I just want to add from the committee is that the desire was to help the PTAs in each of the school sites in this coming year. There is a new superintendent coming to the San Bruno Park School District, and with a new superintendent, with a new vision, there may be opportunities to do larger grants with the schools, but it may take some time because it's a new superintendent and he's got to get his feet wet and get situated and figure out what his priorities are going to be. So this was thought to be something we could do very quickly to have actually a very tangible, meaningful benefit for each school site as we investigate potentially bigger strategic grants that would be more from the whole vision of the school district with a new superintendent.
Any other comments or questions? I'll just weigh in really quickly. I think that we have been talking about how we can support our schools during the pandemic, especially focusing on programs that are at cost for families and for the schools that may have been put on the side until other priorities are met. And I think that this would be a good idea to just help our PTA and PTO organizations to sort of kickstart, as you have mentioned tonight, some activities for the young people. I think it's a slow amp up. We kind of transitioned really quickly back into schools with a whole host of challenges of families and young people. And this could really help them start to explore opportunities that the young people can engage in outside of the classroom and outside the campus. So I think it's a great idea. I would also just love perhaps some of the schools to share what ideas they might be having around how they want to utilize the funds, so that not so much checks and balances, but just to ensure that it has the greatest impact on the young people and the support for the schools. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to the public. Are there any questions from the public or comments?
We have no public attendees at this point.
Oh, well, all right. Okay. So thank you, Board Member Secretary Gomez. Hope that you've gotten some information that could really help the committee move forward. And we look forward to hearing more about that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We're going to move on to item C. Receive report on other programs, community grants fund, and other strategic grants. I'll turn the time over to Leslie.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I won't cover in detail all the information contained in the staff report regarding the Community Grants Fund and the other strategic grants, but I just want to highlight a few items. First of all, with the Community Grants Fund, we will launch the 7th iteration of the Community Grants Fund at the beginning of July, following our normal schedule. Around July 1st, the online application will be available, as well as all of the marketing materials, which we will be posting around town. We are not planning any major programmatic changes for the 22-23 cycle, so everything will run pretty much as it has been the last few years. The application deadline will be September 21st, 2022. The review process will take place in October, November with a review panel, and then the recommendations will come to the board at our December board meeting for final approval. We have a community partner that will be donating $100,000 to the program. That is factored into the budget that you'll see tonight, and we'll be making a public announcement about that donation in the near future. In July, we will receive reports, our quarterly report from the city on the Recreation and Aquatic Center. So we'll get a further update on the construction, as well as we'll get a report from the Tanforan Memorial Committee on their progress. They are hoping to be completed by the end of July, beginning of August, with a ribbon cutting event that we will all be invited to later on in the summer. So that's all I have for the other programs report. Happy to take any questions if you have them.
Any questions from the board, comments? Okay. And I don't think we have public.
No one else in the public.
Okay,
No.
great. Okay. Thank you, Leslie. We're going to move over to item D, receive report from the investment committee. Treasurer Lynn is chair of the committee and will provide a report.
Thank you, President Natali Jones. On May 18th, we met, the investment committee met and discussed as part of the quarterly meeting. There were really four main elements that we discussed. First is just how our portfolio is doing. Sandhill, our investment advisor, provided the information, and as you may know, and I'm just going to go as quickly as possible, there's been a lot of changes and fluctuations in the market because of supply chain issue, war in Ukraine, and just COVID still impacting the supply chain. And so that is negatively impacting our investment portfolio, which then means that one of the questions we did ask them is, well, are we meeting our goals, or will we meet our goals as a committee, as a board? And their answer is, for the RAC, we will be able to meet that goal. For the longevity of the program, where we were planning on, I believe, drawing down about $1.8 million per year, there may be a tail end, depending on how the market fluctuates and recover in the next few years, that may impact the end. So meaning if we think it was going to last 23 years, it might be 22 years or 20 years. So that is something to be considerate of as we're moving forward, but at least in the immediate future, we will be able to meet our first goal, which is paying and supporting the RAC. Then the second item we talked about was about cash flow. Because of the negative impact, the question really is, should we draw down the remaining portion for the RAC payment of almost $30 million with 29.5 million? Should we do it now? Should we do it in parts, and when? Some of the key thoughts were, the economy is very unpredictable. It doesn't make sense for us to time the market, as in trying to recover before drawing down. So their recommendation is that we would draw down 10 million first to cover the first few payments, and then later, and seeing how everything goes, draw down the remainder. And really, the RAC will be completed, if I have the note correctly, in about a year and a half. Third item is then about the quasi-endowment payout rate, and that is an element that we will also be discussing, or Leslie will be discussing, as part E of the agenda. And it's through her analysis and reconciliation that we realized we didn't need to do a payout rate as we used to of close to 1.9%, that we can use the 1.4% for the coming year and still meet our goal for the Crestmore Scholarship and the Community Grant Fund. Then lastly, as part of the investment committee, we want to look at our investment portfolio policy, because that drives how we invest. It drives our benchmark, it drives what investments we put in. And so at this point, there really isn't any need to change. And Sandhill has been doing a fabulous job in making sure our portfolio, while conservative, is even more conservative than the typical benchmark. So we are in a tumultuous time. There's no doubt about it. There's a lot of uncertainty, but really for what we plan to do as a board, for the vision of the board, we will be able to meet the goals that we have put in. And I will take any questions.
Thank you, Treasurer Lynn. Any questions from the board? Okay. There's no public. Thank you for the report. We're going to move on to item E, adopt resolution approving fiscal year 2022-2023 budget, setting the quasi-endowment payout rate for the fiscal year of 2022-23, approving transfer from the strategic pool investment account to the liquidity operating sub-account for fiscal year 2022-23, and approving transfer from the liquidity rack investment sub-account to the liquidity operating sub-account for the fiscal year 2022-23. I dare someone else to try to say that. So I'll turn it over to Leslie.
Yeah, let me pull up my slide deck just a second. Okay, here we go. Okay. This is a fairly long presentation, so just bear with me. It's the presentation I always give on our budget, which is a fairly straightforward budget, but I like to be as transparent as possible with our situation. Before I get to the details of the fiscal year 22-23 budget, I think it's instructive to review the overall health of the organization. And this chart provides a complete picture of the foundation's overall financial history and health. It includes both our investment portfolio, which is managed by Sandhill Global Advisors, as well as other funds, including the initial funds we received from the foundation, from the city prior to setting up our accounts with Sandhill, as well as donations received. So these are really rounded figures to the million, but they give you in a very easy glimpse sort of where we stand. We had total initial assets of 71 million. Remember that the initial grant from PG&E was $68.75 million in cash, plus 5 vacant property lots, then valued at 1.25 million. The city sold 3 of those lots, and that totaled 1.25 million by the time they sold them. The city converted the remaining 2 lots into the Earl Glenview Park, which was rebuilt in the Crestmore neighborhood. So the total initial assets included the 69.8 million that was transferred from the city to our Fidelity accounts in 2016. It also includes about $700,000 we received from the city prior to that to just pay our bills those first couple of years. The investment gains are the investment income that we've received, unrealized and realized gains we've received through our investment portfolio that is managed by Sandhill. So that at this point is about 16 million. That is down a little bit because of the market volatility. But over time that could rise again, and is still a pretty good rate of return over the 7 years, six years, I guess, that the Sandhill has been overseeing our funding. So that's still a very meaningful increase. Donations and other income. So those are funds that we have received and spent. They stayed only in our operating accounts, never went to Sandhill to manage. That is a small amount, but still not insignificant. Without actively fundraising, we have brought in almost $2 million since 2016. And our total funds dispersed through April, the last full month that we have accounting for, the actual amount paid out has been about $29 million. We've had total expenses of almost $59 million with liabilities of about 30 million. leaving the net distributed amount of 29 million. Just to refresh your memory, grants and scholarships hit our books as expenses when we either execute the grant agreement or we award the scholarships. So that, like, the full construction grant for the RAC, right, in this past year was 40.5 million. That whole expense hit our books in this year. But we often pay out grants and scholarships over time, over many years. And so the money going out doesn't all happen the same year that the grant or a scholarship gets expensed, which is why there's a difference there. So right now, our overall portfolio value is about 5960 million, with liabilities of about 30 million, leaving about a $30 million balance once all of those grants, predominantly mainly the RAC grant payments, are paid out. As you can see, the financial health of the foundation, despite recent market volatility, still remains strong. This is due to, we've gotten a little bit lucky with a robust stock market these past few years, despite recent volatility. We've had very strong, prudent investment management from Sandhill. And we've had very solid fiscal practices and procedures that are followed by both our board and staff. And so you should view our budget for this coming year in the context of our overall financial health. Also want to highlight before we get into the details that our budget is not a typical nonprofit budget where the goal is for expenses to equal revenues. Our budget is more expense driven than income driven, mainly because our budgeted income consists primarily of transfers from our assets as opposed to new funds coming in. So it's the transfers from our assets, the quasi-endowment, the strategic pool, and the liquidity RAC subaccount to our operating budget to cover our cash needs during the fiscal year, along with a small cohort of donations and interest income received on our operating funds. We do not seek, and we don't even achieve, to have a balanced budget, as our cash needs don't necessarily match our recorded expenses in a given year. And that's again because we record grants and scholarships in the year that we award them, but then we may pay them out over time, over many different years. So the fact that our FY 22-23 budget funds available for operations of about 34 million far exceed our expenses of about 6.4 million. That shouldn't be a cause for concern. The calculations for our expenses and our funds available for operations should be analyzed separately because they are based on different needs and factors. So let's get into the actual budget and start with expenses. We have three main categories of expenses. I'm not going to go through every line item. I'll hit the highlights, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have about specific items. We will get to direct program expenses in more detail in just a moment, but let me note on this slide the big discrepancy between the current fiscal year of what is projected versus next year. That's of course because they were of the RAC construction grant. That was a $40.5 million grant. We aren't going to be making too many of those, but that really inflated our direct program expenses this year. The roughly 6 million in next year's budget is a more typical outlay. In terms of personnel expenses, they are expected to decline just a little bit. They were a little higher than expected this year because we had 2 program manager transitions and had overlapping time with the interim program manager in order to allow for training. Non-personnel support costs are expected to be higher next year due to a combination of several factors. One, budgeting based on contract ceilings and providing flexibility for unanticipated expenses, and also several new expense lines or expense items. Budgeted amounts operate as ceilings, and I'm very cost conscious in terms of actually incurring purchase decisions, so that actual costs typically come in under budgeted costs. Please note that from fiscal year 15-16 to 2021, actual non-personnel support costs have averaged about 12% lower than the budgeted amount. So I do expect us to come under that 199 on the non-personnel support costs. There's a couple of items of note of why there are some increases this year. There's about a $5,000 increase in marketing and communications to allow for a second all-city mailing if we think one is necessary. What we did here in the community listening campaign was a desire for more communication. So there is budgeted funds to do a second mailing if we think it's appropriate. If we don't do it, we will save that money. There's about a $27,000 increase in other consultant fees. That's due to both the fact that we had a pretty low number this year for consultant fees because we didn't use a lot of consultants. And next year we want to engage a DEI consultant to continue our DEI work. And we'd also like to bring on a fundraising consultant to help us do some analysis of whether adding a fundraising component to our operations makes sense or not, and to have an expert actually help us gauge whether that makes sense for us to do. Those are placeholder amounts for those. If we can get those consultants in for cheaper, we definitely will try. There's also a $15,000 increase in the travel, meetings, and conferences line. That's really due to the fact that once we go back to in-person or hybrid meetings at the senior center, we do have to pay for room rental, as well as use of the city's technology so that we can do the hybrid meetings both on Zoom and in person at the same time. They're putting in some new cameras and technology to make that more effective. However, there is going to be a not significant price charge to us to use those services. So we are hoping to stay on Zoom for a while if possible, but at some point we are going to probably have to go into hybrid mode. The expectation, I believe, by the public is that they will still want to be able to access us via Zoom, so that even once we go back in person, probably hybrid is going to be the new norm for all of these types of public agencies meeting. And those will be some costs we have to incur. There's also about an $18,000 increase in legal fees. With Mark Zaffarano's retirement, we've been paying a percentage of his compensation package to the city for his services. That relationship will stop with the city. The city is just approved last night bringing on an interim basis and potentially on a permanent basis later down the line, an outside firm that will serve as a city attorney. I will be talking to them about potentially us also using them for their services. But until we negotiate that deal, we don't know exactly what the cost will be. The legal fees, we don't know what our legal needs will be. Hopefully we don't get sued. We have not gotten sued, but we always want to have a little bit of cushion in that line in the event that we do have some legal issues that come up. Typically we come in quite a bit under budget on the legal fees line, just because we don't end up needing extra legal assistance. And I'm hopeful that that will happen again next year. So those are the key expenses increases that are reflected in these lines here. Let me get to our program expenses. As you can see, we have our regular allocations for the Crestmore scholarships and the Community Grants Fund. The Community Grants Fund does take into account a donation that's pending that we will announce soon. On the strategic grants line, we have budgeted that at $5.5 million. It includes a $5 million placeholder for a possible major initiative, which we did talk about coming out of the community listening campaign and the development of the strategic plan. We do know that the city may approach us for additional funding for the RAC as unanticipated expenses have come up, as well as just cost increases as the project has been extended in time. So it is possible that the city will be coming to us for additional funding on that. We also, if we don't make a bigger strategic initiative, of course, we would be able to save that for use at a later time. We also have budgeted $500,000 for smaller initiatives, though those would include Community Day, COVID relief grants, other grants with the schools. We have also talked to the city about possibly there's interest in doing some work downtown. This one of the initiatives that has come up that we are interested in talking to the city about is Centennial Park. That is that kind of parklet area next to West Coast Cafe on San Mateo Avenue that the city actually hopes to develop in the coming year into an actual community gathering space. Right now, it's actually kind of roped off, but they want to really make that into more of a gathering space downtown, which I personally think would be great. And we look forward to talking to them about that possible opportunity. So those types of grants could come out of that pot. As you know, all strategic grants require specific approval by the board. It's just being included in the budget with a placeholder is not enough. So any of those decisions will come back to the board for formal approval. We also always budget $10,000 in other grants. That's for our out of cycle responsive grants program, so that if a community grant like proposal comes to us not during the regular community grants fund cycle, has some urgency and some relevance for us, that we are able to make those types of one-time grants on the smaller scale. This year we used those funds for the fire department's rapid antigen test program that we gave the $10,000 to in February. So that's what that line is. So that's not quite $6 million in program expenses. Moving on to our income. We typically budget operating income to be fairly low. We don't currently expect any donations, although some do arise as they have this year, and those will then get slotted on that line. Miscellaneous income is usually unexpected. That's usually when like a grantee returns part of the grant in a grant that was awarded in a previous year. Since it happened, the expense happened in a previous year, we can't sort of negate that amount of the grant funding. It actually shows up as miscellaneous income from an accounting perspective. For our interest income, we are budgeting basically 50% of what we got this year, because we are going to be, interest income is basically our liquidity operating account. That's what the interest is being based on. Those funds were high this year because we had already pulled over some money for the RAC. Now, as we pay out the RAC payments, those funds are going to be lower. So there's a lower base to earn the interest income on. So conservative estimate of about $10,000. In the grand scheme of things, our operating income is a very small percentage of our funds available for operation, because clearly the bulk of our funding comes from our transfers from our investments. They come on our balance sheet from the investment side into our operating funds. Let's go to the quasi-endowment cash needs. Our quasi-endowment transfer is based on our cash needs for the Crestmore Scholarship and the Community Grants Fund. I do a calculation of that. There are some restricted donations and residual community quasi-endowment payout carried forward from previous years. This year, I did a complete reconciliation of all of the quasi-endowment we had paid out over the past few years, and what we actually had paid for the Crestmore Scholarships and Community Grants Fund. Did that reconciliation so that we have about 191,000 carrying forward from the previous year. So we have quasi-endowment cash needs of 475,000, subtracting that 191,000, we have net quasi-endowment cash needs of about $284,000. Our quasi-endowment payout is actually a percentage of the average of the past 12 quarters. of our quasi-endowment balance. That's how it's spelled out in our investment policy statement. We don't like to go out more than about 2 decimal places for our percentage, otherwise it just gets a little unwieldy. So the closest we were able to get was a 1.41%, which will give us about 286,000, which covers our Crestmore Scholarship and Community Grants Fund cash needs for next year. So that's where we got that number, and that's what the investment committee is recommending that we set our quasi-endowment payout rate at this year. In order to understand the transfers from the strategic pool and the liquidity rack account, it's important to remember the rationale behind creating those accounts. Based on the results of the first community listening campaign, the board decided to designate about $55 million of the restitution funds to establish the strategic pool to be spent outright on strategic initiatives, including at least one major community facility project, which ultimately turned out to be the RAC. The liquidity pool was created to serve as the holding account for expenditures planned in the next 0 to 24 months. Its purpose is to mirror the foundation's operating accounts, and it may be funded by both quasi-endowment and the strategic pool. The investment goal for the liquidity pools is to preserve the principal balance of all funds directed into the pool, and as such, capital preservation and liquidity are the primary objectives. In 2018, the board moved $10 million from the strategic pool to the liquidity pool for use in the following fiscal year, and thus it wasn't part of that year's current operating budget, in order to reduce market volatility risk for a portion of the funds to be used on the RAC project. We knew we were going to have to start paying out funds and wanted to protect some of that from market volatility. That led to the creation of 2 sub-accounts in the liquidity pool, liquidity operating and liquidity RAC. And those 2 sub-accounts receive different treatment in our monthly financial statements. And each receives its own share of the interest income that the pool accrues. On the balance sheet, funds in the liquidity RAC sub-account are shown as investment assets and are not part of the operating budget. In contrast, funds in liquidity operating are shown as part of our operating budget, and they're shown on our statements as cash assets. As you probably have assumed, the main driver behind transfers from the strategic pool to the liquidity RAC and the liquidity RAC sub-account to our operating accounts is the remaining set of RAC grant payments. We've made a $50 million overall commitment, but we're paying out those grant payments on a quarterly basis. Thus far, we have paid out RAC grant payments of about $20.5 million. Given the expected construction timeframe, construction is expected to end in the fall of 2023. All remaining RAC grant payments, which total about $29.5 million, will likely fall within the 0 to 24 months timeframe for the liquidity pool. As a result, the investment committee is recommending that the FY 22-23 budget include transfers covering the full amount of the remaining funds needed to meet all potential remaining RAC grant payments. So we will recover those through 2 sources. The first will be, we will close out the liquidity RAC sub-account. Right now, or as of April 30th, it was about an $8.8 million balance left. The resolution the board will pass will allow us to close that sub-account and use all of those funds to pay the RAC grant payments. For the remaining balance of about $20.7 million, that will be strategic payout that will be needed. And that will get us to the $29.5 million we need to cover all of our RAC grant obligations. In addition to the RAC, we will have other grants and operating expenses that need to be covered by strategic payout. We know that we need to pay out the Community Day grant of $30,000 over the summer. The next year of Music Ed Strategic Initiative grant payments of $160,000 will also be paid out over the summer. And then there's the 5.5 million for the possible major and smaller initiatives under our strategic grant making, and plus the $10,000 in other grants. So we will have strategic cash needs for our non-RAC program expenditures of about 5.7 million. We assume that all of our operating costs are also covered and paid out by strategic cash, the strategic pool during the year, and that's about $448,000. So our total non-RAC strategic cash needs are about 6.1 million. So our strategic pool payout, here is the calculation. We have about a $35.6 million total needs. We are subtracting our carry forward from the current fiscal year. We expect to have about 1.88 million left from that. We will close out the liquidity rack for another 8.8 million. We'll have a little bit of operating income, $10,000, plus we always factor in about $100,000 buffer to make sure we've got the flexibility we need if our cash needs differ a little bit from what's expected, for our net strategic cash needs of about $25 million. And so that's how we get the strategic payout of $25,083,576 for our strategic transfers in our budget. The resolution before the board today does 5 things. It approves the budget. It approves the quasi-endowment payout rate of 1.41%, which results in our transfer of not quite $286,000. It approves the transfer from the strategic pool to the liquidity operating account of a little over $25 million to cover our cash needs. And it approves a transfer of from the liquidity rack to the liquidity operating account of approximately 8.8 million and allowing us to close the sub account. And finally, it directs me to submit our budget to the City Council for approval as required by our bylaws. Note that all of the transfer amounts are ceilings. The budget resolution will give me the discretion to divide the transfers into smaller increments, set the timing of the transfer of those increments, and to transfer less than the amount approved based on what our actual cash needs are. This year, we ended up transferring quite a bit less because we didn't need to pay out the RAC payments as quickly as we expected. So we ended up coming in quite a bit under budget on those transfers. Same thing would happen next year if for some reason the RAC payments get extended longer. We wouldn't necessarily transfer all of the funds if they aren't needed. Also last night, as I think you all know, I gave basically this same presentation to the City Council, as well as a recap of our past year of activities. This is a presentation I do every year to the council. Overall, the council was appreciative of the foundation's support of the city and the community. Several questions were asked and comments made on a variety of topics with regard to our activities and our budget. They included questions about the process for our strategic grant making, our strategic plan 2.0, and there were questions about some of our operational costs, including personnel costs. We responded to some of the questions at the meeting, and others may require follow-up. Once the board approves our budget tonight, assuming it does, we will then submit it to the City Council for approval at its June 28th meeting. I want to thank both President Natani Jones and Vice President Ruane for attending last night's presentation. We were at the very end of the City Council's meeting, which included their own budget review. So the meeting started at 5 and we finally came up for discussion at 10 p.m. last night, and our presentation ended a little after 11. And Jim and Melissa stuck through it to the very end, and I do appreciate their support of being there and representing us at that late time. So that is our budget. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Hopefully the staff memo provided you with plenty of background on the different budget lines and answered hopefully a lot of your questions.
Thank you, Executive Director Hadamia, for a very thorough report out. And we do have a question. Go ahead. Thank you, Melissa.
So I took notes, and these are my questions I just put in chat. And so maybe maybe you can help answer a couple of these.
Okay. So I'm looking at your questions. Have we considered a social media campaign instead of direct mail? We are increasing our use of social media. We hope to ramp it up a little bit more, especially as Jessica gets situated with the Community Grants Fund. We will be using social media more. We have seen value of doing some direct mail, which is why we do the annual report to everybody. We do that. We've always done that one main mailing of the year. And there are people who aren't on social media, so we want to make sure we're reaching people in different ways, which is why we budgeted for a second mailing. I don't know that we will use it, but we wanted to be able to have money in the budget if for some reason something came up that we thought was important to communicate with the community. So we do want to increase our social media usage to communicate with the community. And we may or may not use that second mailing. I think we will still do the annual report. Probably it's sort of an expectation now, and it's a nice way to, in one package, really summarize the year for the community. Your second question was, how much are we talking with a RAC request? We don't know exactly what that will look like. What happened is the city came to the RAC Advisory Committee earlier this year with some additional expenses that the city wanted to use contingency funds for. So the city does have about $5 million in its contingency budgeted for contingency for the construction budget. And it was, someone raised the question of, well, why don't we ask the foundation for additional funding? What they've decided to do and what we've encouraged them is that use up the contingency, because that's what contingency is for, and come back to us at the end with one ask. The other concern we had was just getting additional asks sort of on an ad hoc basis as they came up, as opposed to waiting until the end. It could be a few million. I don't think that's out of the question, but we won't know what the exact number is until they kind of use up contingency and see how all of the costs pan out.
So then
I don't know if
that would reduce our major initiative line item then?
that would be part of the major initiative line item.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
I don't know if Jim or Melissa, they serve on the RAC Advisory Committee, if they have anything else to add on that point.
Yeah, the city ran into some issues internally. They were going to backfill to make up the difference of the money. There's a development in San Bruno that got cut in half, so some of those development fees are not going to be available. A couple of little things like that. We're also talking about some solar installation, and they're still working through that to see if it's going to be feasible for the project and if it's really going to pay for itself over a period of time. So there's some unknowns there, and so I told them, from my perspective, you have a contingency. Get rid of that to the point where there's not much left, and then we can and we'll have a much better idea at that point in time if they need any more money and how much it's going to be. So, but I told them, this foundation is determined to have a first-class operation. We don't want to cut anything back. So I think that's why Leslie put in the $5 million just as a placeholder, not given the fact that we're going to disperse all of that or they're even going to ask for all of that. So they still have a couple of unknowns, but right now, based on the RAC committee meetings, we're going to, they're on budget and on time.
Thanks.
Your third or Melissa, did you have anything to add to that? Okay.
I think you covered it.
Can you repeat our ending balance at the end of FY 22-23? What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, I mean, after our budget, what do we have left over? Are we still at the 30 million in assets, or?
It'll depend a little on the market, fluctuation over the next year,
Okay,
right? We're right now in about the right place to end at about 30 million.
okay,
But, if we hit a recession, our investment portfolio will lose value.
okay,
Or if it rebounds, we could be higher.
okay.
So,
And then my last one was, I needed to be reminded. So for the major initiative and the minor initiative line items, where did those ideas come from?
so they could come from the city. I mean, it could end up being that the major initiative does end up being in large part additional funding for the RAC. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the reality.
Mhm.
There are other projects, that we're investigating. So we have the Educational Initiatives Committee that's looking at various initiatives. We have the Vocational Education Committee, which was created actually a couple of years ago and actually right before COVID hit. And that kind of stalled that initiative that we'll be looking at again to see if there's an opportunity. The Program Development Committee will also, which I believe you sit on, will be looking at other opportunities that come up to us through this year, and it may lead to the creation of other ad hoc committees, if that makes sense. Centennial Park is one I mentioned earlier that the city has mentioned to us that we probably will have the Program Development Committee at least initially vet as it comes.
Mhm.
And
So it's either us in our subcommittees or the city, basically.
or an outside partner that comes to us. It could be
Okay.
the school district or another, outside partner. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep. Other questions?
Any questions? Yes.
Irving.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Board Member Moreno said about just the social media campaign and just kind of emphasizing that. I know mailers obviously go to households, but I think thinking about social media ads, will definitely and would help to cast a wider net in San Bruno, but also kind of attract some potential San Bruno residents to participate or learn about the San Bruno Community Foundation. And then I'm just curious as to, if we were to approve this tonight and it gets sent to the city council, hypothetically speaking, right, worst case scenario, they reject it. Does it come back to us? I'm just curious, like, what would that process look like if that ever happened? I hope it doesn't, but
Yeah, that's a good question. It hasn't happened yet. Hopefully, if they send it back, they would send it back with some direction in terms of what their concerns would be, and then the board would, have to take that feedback, and we would tweak the budget and resubmit it for approval. We would need to continue paying our bills, even if it weren't approved, because we do have, obligations like rent and things that we would need to continue to pay. We're optimistic it's not going to come to that.
Yes, Treasurer Lynn.
Just piggybacking on Taurus's question. I know government, but I don't know nonprofit in terms of the need of an approved budget by July 1st in order to pay the bills. So I guess that's the question, and whether that may impact how it's presented to the council.
It's a question I've actually been talking to the city attorney about, what that really means. We would probably still at least pay our bills that we need to pay, and there could be some kind of continuing resolution, right, to at least do that kind of continuing payment of our obligations. I don't know if the city attorney who is with us tonight wants to weigh in his last meeting with us.
Thank you. So I think there's sort of two separate questions. And one of them is whether the foundation as a nonprofit can continue operating or has some legal requirement to adopt a budget in order to operate. And I actually don't know the answer to that question, but would recommend that you check with the foundation's nonprofit council. I believe the answer is no, you do not need an adopted budget, but that would be something to confirm. And then the second question is whether the foundation can adopt its budget absent approval from the city council. And as Leslie said, we hope we don't have to reach that issue because we have not done so in the past. But in general, you know, as I've explained before, both to the city council and to the foundation, the city council does have some of these reserved powers, and one of those powers is to approve your budget. However, the city council's action in not approving your budget or in making recommendations about what you should have in your budget would really only be that, a recommendation. The city council doesn't control your budget in any other substantive way except having this reserved power to approve it. So I hope that's helpful.
Yes, very much so. And I guess, so again, just only from government experience, when we are concerned about the budget being approved and worried about the cash flow issue, we usually have a secondary alternative, almost like a resolution asking for a couple months of operating budget just so that it can tie until the next council meeting or the next meeting to get the full budget approved.
And I'll just say, if I may, through the chair, PAC remembers very well what the city routinely does, which is only required if the entity is required to have a budget in order to operate. And so if the nonprofit isn't required to have adopted a budget, which you can check on, then there would be no need to have that sort of continuing resolution that the city of San Bruno and other cities routinely use if they have other issues that arise about the budget after the beginning of the next fiscal year.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments regarding our budget? I believe we do not have any public attendees. So at this time, may I call for a motion to adopt resolution approving fiscal year 22-23 budget, setting the quasi-endowment payout rate for the fiscal year of 2022-23, approving transfer from the strategic pool investment account to the liquidity operating sub-account for fiscal year 22-23, and approving transfer from the liquidity rack investment sub-account to the liquidity operating sub-account for fiscal year 22-23.
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. And now I'll turn the time over to Secretary Gomez for a roll call vote.
Thank you. Board Member Irving Torres.
Aye.
Board Member Sapira Perry.
Aye.
Board Member Melissa Moreno.
Aye.
Treasurer Pat Glynn.
Aye.
Secretary Raul Gomez is an aye. Vice President Jim Ruane.
Aye.
And President Melissa Natani Jones.
Aye.
All accounted for. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Now we'll move to item number 9 for board member comments. Are there any comments? No? Okay, I will now move to item number 10. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's no need for a roll call vote. We are adjourned, and I hope to see everyone at Community Day on Sunday or at our regular meeting, which is scheduled for Wednesday, July 6th, 2022 at 7 p.m. via Zoom.
Take care,
Good night,
everybody.
everyone.
Take care, Mark. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks a lot.